Senkaku Islands Issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 1. Imperial Japanese Army, 5th Division. 1. Babar Island Massacre. In October 1944, Imperial Japanese Army, 5th Division massacred more than 400 villagers, including women and children, on Babar Island. Imperial Japanese Army, 5th Division stationed on Kai Islands, sent their agent to this Babar Island to buy tobacco for the 5th Division. But a village chief of Babar Island had known that Japanese military notes were worthless from the previous transaction and rejected to sell tobacco this time. Then Japanese agent slapped the chief across the face and showed a knife to threaten him. The chief then pulled his knife also and killed the Japanese agent right there. Feared Japanese retaliation from Kai Islands, all villagers fled into the forest of Babar Island. The 5th Division rushed to the Babar Island and conducted a mountain hunt, but to no avail. Then the 5th Division lured the villagers out of mountain, saying to forgive if they surrendered. As they had no food, 400 villagers eventually surrendered. Surprised by the number of villagers, the 5th Division killed them all, as 5th Division had already burnt out their whole village and could not feed so many people. 2. Poison gas experiment. In November 1944, the same 5th Division killed 2 Australian POWs on Kai Islands by throwing Molotov cocktail filled with potassium cyanide instead of gasoline at them. They made sure POWs were dead by bayoneting. The 5th Division on Kai Islands were idle since the war front had gone up north, and their poison gas had been more than 3 years old, and they wanted to test if the gas was still effective by using Australian POWs as guinea pigs. 3. Tachibana Maru Incident. Imperial Japanese Army 5th Division tried to transfer 1,500 idle soldiers from Kai Islands to Singapore to reinforce the troops there in August 1945. However, surrounding oceans had already been under Allied control, and thus Japanese warships and transports could not sail through. The 5th Division then sent Red Cross hospital ship Tachibana Maru to Kai Islands and had 1,500 soldiers clad in white patient clothes and stashed their army uniforms, rifles, machine guns, and mortars in the hold of the ship. Sick and wounded needing treatments were left behind on the islands, and only combat-ready healthy soldiers were allowed to board Tachibana Maru. However, on the way to Singapore, Tachibana Maru was spotted by Allied patrol plane and captured by Allied destroyers for violation of the international law. Senkaku Islands Issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 2. Upper half. Then, what kind of a city was Hiroshima? In 1894, Japan went to war against China, that is, the first Sino-Japanese War. At that time, Hiroshima happened to be the westernmost tip of Japanese National Railway line, which had been extending westward from Tokyo. In 1890, 4 years before, Ujina Seaport had been completed at the south end of Hiroshima as an employment policy of the ruined warrior class. Then Japan hastily laid an extension railway line from Hiroshima Station to Ujina Port only in 17 days. Since then, troops and weapons were sent to the Chinese front from Tokyo via Hiroshima Station and then Ujina Port. Triumphant Japan then started the Russo-Japanese War in 1904 and miraculously won the war, and again this Tokyo-Hiroshima Station Ujina Port network worked perfectly. Now, Japanese National Railway line was extended farther west and military factories mushroomed everywhere in order to manufacture such military products on their own instead of just being transporters of Tokyo products. Now let's overlay the atomic bomb 3-kilometer radius circles. Let's see the upper half of 3-kilometer radius, which was totally destroyed by the atomic bomb. Right north to the atomic bomb blast center was Hiroshima Castle, which was used by Imperial Japanese Army 5th Division. In the castle premises, there were powder magazine, logistics battalion, field gun regiment, 5th Division headquarters, military police unit, infantry regiment, military training field west, armory, and out of castle premises were military draft hall, military training field east, and 2nd General Army headquarters. This 2nd General Army headquarters was the upper organization of the 5th Division and was tasked to control all army units in the western half of Japan in the coming Battle of Japanese mainland. Western army units were all put into total confusion till the end of war, as the 2nd General Army headquarters were gone. The atomic bomb not only destroyed criminal 5th Division, but also destroyed the 2nd General Army headquarters in a second. The atomic bomb killed 2 birds with one blast. 140,000 people were killed by the atomic bomb, but 10,000 were the 5th Division and the 2nd General Army headquarters personnel and were military targets, red. There were many military factories such as 20 ironworks, 8 foundries, 6 canning factories, 4 screw manufacturers, 2 pump factories, 2 gilding factories, and 8 other military factories. Canning factories made canned meat, fish, or vegetable for soldiers dispatched out of Japan. In all, there were 50 factories manufacturing parts for weapons in this upper 3-kilometer radius area. Suppose each factory had 100 employees. 50 factories would have 5,000 employees then. They were military targets as they made weapons to kill Americans and Allied soldiers. This increases military targets in the graph from 10,000 to 15,000. There were several schools in this area. This Honkawa school had 400 innocent kids, all killed by the atomic bomb, as it was so close to the atomic bomb blast center. This Yasuda Girls' High School had their 13 teachers and 315 students killed by the atomic bomb during demolition work near prefectural office. Yasuda Girls' High School itself was empty, as other girls were dispatched to military factories elsewhere. Demolition work was led by Imperial Japanese Army to create wide vacant strip of land by tearing down civilian houses there in order to prevent fires caused by B-29 incendiary bombs from spreading to military factories nearby. This demolition activity was designed to nullify B-29 bombings and thus was military activity, that is, workers there were military targets also. Japanese government is paying pension for the bereaved families of the dead during the demolition job as military personnel. This fact evidences that they were working for Imperial Japanese Army, that is in turn the enemy for the Americans and Allies. Military targets in the graph increase a little bit from 15,000 to 15,000 plus 13 plus 315, that is 15,328. Hakushima School had estimated 100 Imperial Japanese Army soldiers stationed in the first floor of the school, as many students had evacuated to remote countryside for safety, and the first floor was vacant. But some parents thought it the other way round and had their children stay in Hiroshima. While cities around Hiroshima were flattened by B-29 bombings, Hiroshima remained unscathed. Such parents thought that Americans were scared to fly B-29s over Hiroshima as it was surrounded by perfect array of anti-aircraft guns. The fact was that B-29s had been ordered not to bombard Hiroshima to evaluate the destructive power of newly developed special bomb, that is, the atomic bomb. Although the Imperial Japanese Army unit in the first floor was using students on the second floor as human shield, the bomb did not come from above, but the blast came from the side and shattered window glasses and flushed all soldiers and students fatally. Approximate 100 students were killed and increases innocent people from 400 to 500 in this graph. Killed soldiers are not counted this time because they had already been counted as part of 10,005th Division dead soldiers. Hiroshima Girls High School had their 18 teachers and 350 students killed in the Kobacho demolition site. School was empty as girls were mobilized to military factories elsewhere. Killed 18 plus 350 are added to military targets in the graph. Noborimachi Elementary School had their estimated 10 teachers and estimated 20 students killed by the atomic bomb. This school was designated as assembly site for militias of Hiroshima City and its suburbs. Chubu Unit 32,037 had estimated 300 militias gathered here. Chubu Unit 32,057 had also estimated 300 militias gathered here. Also, Women's Corps had estimated 200 girls in school premises. Japan enacted a militia law in June 1945 when Okinawa fell, and designated men between 15 and 60 and women between 17 and 40 as militia. They were trained to shoot rifles and machine guns in preparation for the Battle of Japanese mainland. 10 teachers and 20 students are added as innocents, and militias of 300 plus 300 plus 200, that is 800, are added to military targets, as these are not the 5th Division. Saibi School had their 5 teachers and 150 students killed, but they are counted as military targets because they were cadets. Saibi was run by Imperial Japanese Army personnel, and the chairman was Shunroku Hata, Field Marshal, the head of the 2nd General Army. After the war, he was sentenced to life imprisonment in the International Military Tribunal for the Far East for the atrocities committed in China. Senkaku Islands Issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 3, Lower Half. Now we want to scrutinize the lower half of 3-kilometer radius of atomic bombing. There were 9 ironworks, 4 canning factories, and 1 bottler, 2 foundries, 2 gilding factories, and 5 other factories. There were 23 factories in total. They were manufacturing weapons or their parts in one way or another, that is, military targets. Suppose each had 100 employees in average, then the total would have 2,300, which increases military targets in the graph furthermore. Now let's see into schools. Kanzaki Elementary School had their 8 teachers and 140 students killed by the atomic bomb. These 148 are counted as innocent people and increased the 530 innocents to 678. Nakajima Elementary School had their teachers and students estimated 150 killed by the atomic bomb. They increased innocent 678 to 828. Otemachi Elementary School had their 40 students and teachers killed by the atomic bomb, which increases innocent 828 to 868. Relatively fewer casualties of elementary school students were caused by group evacuation to safer remote countryside than before. Prefectural No. 1 Middle School had their 15 teachers and 351 students killed at demolition site near City Hall. They are counted as military personnel and increased military targets to 19,317. Prefectural Girls High School had their 20 teachers and 277 students killed at mobilized factories and Koamicho demolition site. These 20 plus 277 increased military targets. Furthermore, Fukuromachi Elementary School had their 16 teachers and 160 students killed by the atomic bomb in the school premises. These 16 plus 160 increase 868 innocents to 1,044. Tenma Elementary School is a little bit complicated. There are 13 teachers and 280 students were killed by the atomic bomb in school, and increases innocent dead from 1,044 to 1,337. However, Hiroshima City Middle School had moved in Tenma Elementary School, as many classrooms had been vacated by evacuated elementary students. Such middle school third graders were mobilized to Mitsubishi Machine Factory 5 kilometers south, but 12 teachers and 369 first and second graders were mobilized to demolition work at Koamicho. These 12 plus 369 were totally killed by the atomic bomb, but still counted as military targets here. Hiroshima West Girls High School casualties data are not available now, but a testimony of a survivor says, "We twin sisters were mobilized to nearby Showa Metal Company, and we were riveting aircraft tails and fuel tanks there. That day of the atomic bomb, we were off as Showa Metal lacked parts for us to work with. But our younger third sister was mobilized to Koamicho demolition site that morning. Mother dissuaded her from going as elder sisters were at home, but she insisted to go, saying Japan would be defeated if I don't go. We twin sisters said to Mom, let her go, and she went and died at Koamicho demolition site. I still regret having said that to Mom that morning." Takeya Elementary School had their 5 teachers and 50 students killed by the atomic bomb. This increases innocent 1,337 to 1,392. Sanyo Middle School had their 17 teachers and 486 students killed at a canning factory and demolition site at Zakobacho. This increases military targets to 20,498. Shintoku Girls High School had their 11 teachers and 374 students killed by the atomic bomb. 110 out of 374 were mobilized to telephone office in the city center, and the rest 264 gathered at school ground before going to Tsurumibashi demolition site. These 11 plus 374 are counted as military targets, increasing military targets to 20,883. Telephone was an important tool for the army. If not, these girls wouldn't have been mobilized there in the first place. Teachers' College had all their students mobilized to war front. Instead, affiliated middle school had their teachers and students killed by the atomic bomb, totaling 101. 19 out of 101 were at school as sick or some other reasons. 82 were killed at mobilized factories or at demolition site. 19 are counted as innocents and 82 as military targets. Senda Elementary School pushed back starting time for lower class students from 8:30 to 9 o'clock that morning due to air raid alert of the previous night. When the atomic bomb blasted at 8:15, few students were in school and no casualties caused. However, upper-class students had already departed the school to work at Zakobacho demolition site, and 3 teachers and 41 students were killed there by the atomic bomb. These 44 are counted as military targets. There in the Senda Elementary School were Imperial Japanese Army soldiers stationed, utilizing empty classrooms vacated by group evacuation students. 45 Imperial Japanese Army submarine crew trainees were killed in the school ground during the morning roll call. These 45 are counted as military targets. In those days, Japan had already lost control of the air and the sea. Imperial Japanese Navy fleet had been annihilated by Americans and Allied forces. Imperial Japanese Army was making desperate effort to secure war material transportation by their own submarine fleet. Imperial Japanese Army successfully built 38 such submarines out of planned 400 by the end of war. Those killed 45 trainees were volunteer student corps and not the 5th Division. They were meant to man these submarines. Yamanaka Girls High School had their 4 teachers and 382 first and second graders killed at the Zakobacho demolition site. The 3rd and 4th graders had been working in military factories since 1944 and were already skilled workers there and were protected by factory walls and housing. On the other hand, unskilled 1st and 2nd graders were mobilized to demolition site, which demands no skill, and were exposed to atomic bomb deadly rays and blasts directly, resulting many casualties in the 1st and 2nd graders. Senkaku Islands Issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 4. Overall Picture. Now let's look at overall picture. The important army installations were located in the northeast to the atomic bomb blast center, and they were all destroyed. Destroyed were Powder Magazine, Field Gun Regiment, Criminal 5th Division, Armory, 2nd General Army, Infantry Regiment, and Military Police Unit. Northwest to the atomic bomb blast center were many small medium-sized military factories which supplied parts for Mitsubishi Machines and Mitsubishi Shipyard. Mitsubishi Shipyard was building warships for Imperial Japanese Navy, and Mitsubishi Machines was building engines for such Navy warships. Other factories were shipping mainly by Japanese National Railways to Army Weapon Depot, Army Clothes Depot, and Army Food Depot. Such war supplies were sent to Ujina Port whenever transport convoy was organized by Army Shipping Command. War supplies and troops were sent to war fronts of China and other Southeast Asian countries. Although the damage caused to these 2 factories and 3 depots were minimal, they could not reopen their operation till the end of war as part suppliers within 3-kilometer radius of atomic bombing were all busted. Their machines were heavily damaged, and workers were all killed, and factory housing were totally flattened, and there was no hope of reopening these small, medium-sized military factories at all. In preparation of the coming Battle of Japanese mainland, Mitsubishi Shipyard was building Kai-10 suicide-manned torpedoes in the Sarayama Tunnel factory and Ebayama Tunnel factory dug that year to avoid air raids. These tunnel factories were intact, but lack of parts forced the operation idle. Instead, they were busy taking care of thousands of wounded by the atomic bomb till the end of war. This way, the atomic bomb killed 4 birds with one shot. 1. The 2nd General Army. 2. Criminal 5th Division. 3. Northwest Industrial District. 4. 2 Mitsubishi factories and 3 Army depots were disabled due to lack of parts till the end of war. Senkaku Islands issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 5. Militia. Out of 140,000 Hiroshima casualties, we still have 117,000 plus unidentified people. We have Japanese census of 1940 to identify these casualties. Men between 15 and 60 were 57% of all men, while women between 17 and 40 were 36% of all women. Overall militias were 46% of all population. If we apply this 46% to 117,000 plus unidentified casualties, we get 53,000 plus as military targets and 63,000 plus as innocents. Now, unidentified casualties are gone and military targets are 54% of total 140,000 Hiroshima casualties. Was atomic bombing or indiscriminate bombardment on Hiroshima permissible in this situation? Let's listen to the Japanese Wikipedia on military target protocol. This is Japanese Wikipedia and it explains, if there was an army to defend the area against the invading enemy, the area is considered as a defended area, and the international law allows the invading enemy to bombard the area indiscriminately. This is called an indiscriminate bombardment, as it does not distinguish civilian houses from militarily used buildings. However, Hague War regulations stipulate that the invading enemy must take every possible means to save buildings used for religious, art, academic, welfare purpose, or historical assets, hospitals, clinic for the sick or wounded, unless they are militarily used at the same time. In order for the invading enemy to know them, the defender must place signs and or emblems on such buildings and inform the invading enemy to that effect in advance. However, Japan did not inform America of whereabouts of historical assets, hospitals, etc. in advance. Therefore, B-29s were not obliged to make efforts to avoid bombing such buildings in the first place. Hiroshima was defended by the 5th Division of 20,000 soldiers and thus was a legitimate military target of indiscriminate bombardment. Senkaku Islands issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 6. Air Defense. On top of that, Hiroshima was defended by 6 anti-aircraft gun positions, which were independent from the 5th Division. Kaitaichi had 6 pieces of 75mm AA guns. Shinonome had 4 pieces of 75mm AA guns. Moto Ujina had 6 pieces of 75mm AA guns. Eba had 6 pieces of 88mm AA guns. Uchikoshi had 4 pieces of 75mm AA guns. Kannon had 6 pieces of 75mm AA guns. Yano had a searchlight unit. Funakoshi had a searchlight unit. There were 7 more searchlight units in Hiroshima: Kanawajima, Onagayama, Ujinabashi, Ebayama, Gyojayama, Chausuyama, and Ebiyama. Searchlight units help anti-aircraft guns aim their guns at the enemy at night. Searchlights lit up the night sky over Hiroshima. As you see, Hiroshima was a heavily armed city. Japanese themselves called Hiroshima military capital in those days. Senkaku Islands issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 7. Japan did it first. This could be an overkill, but it was Japan who started indiscriminate bombardment in history. Japanese Wikipedia of Chongqing bombing, the then capital of China, reads, "Later, Japan divided Chongqing urban area into sections and carpet bombed one by one, that is, virtually bombed indiscriminately." Japanese Wikipedia of carpet bombing says, Japan bombarded Chinese then capital Chongqing continuously between 1938 and 1943. During the latter half of this period, Japan carpet bombed the urban area. Japanese Wikipedia also says that, from the point of view of the international law, attacks by carpet bombing is against Hague War Regulations, Attachment Section 1, Military Target Protocol. Early 1942, right after the Pearl Harbor attack, China joined the Allied countries. Even American officers were sent to China to command Chinese theater of Allied forces. Now, what is important here is Japan did not stop bombing China even after China joined Allies. This means that Japan bombed Allied country capital indiscriminately. This very fact entitled America to bombard Japan indiscriminately, no matter whether it was legal or not. Senkaku Islands issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 8. Japanese atomic bomb. Japan was developing atomic bomb of their own starting in April 1941, half a year before the Pearl Harbor attack, and 1 year before American Manhattan Project, which started in October 1942. In this meaning, Japan was way ahead of America in the atomic bomb development. However, uranium enrichment facilities in Tokyo were destroyed by B-29 indiscriminate bombardment in April 1945. Japan rebuilt 3 uranium enrichment facilities in Osaka University premises, thinking that America would spare education facilities. However, B-29 Osaka bombings caused general failure of power and water supply, which disabled the newly built uranium enrichment facilities in the university. Then Japan rebuilt 5 uranium enrichment facilities in Sumitomo Steel Pipe Company in Amagasaki City, west to Osaka. But material to feed uranium enrichment facilities did not arrive at Sumitomo Pipe. The material, uranium hexafluoride, had been generated in Tokyo, right next to uranium enrichment facilities then. After the April B-29 bombing, Japan evacuated the uranium hexafluoride generator to Yamagata High School, again expecting America to spare education facilities. However, American aircraft carriers sailed near Japanese Pacific coast and flew fighters and bombers and attacked Japanese National Railway trains, stations, bridges, disrupting transportation in Japan, which unknowingly blocked uranium hexafluoride somewhere on the way from Yamagata High School to Amagasaki. Although the 5 uranium enrichment facilities were completed in Sumitomo Steel Pipe, but were never operated due to lack of uranium hexafluoride till the end of war. If B-29s had not bombed Tokyo indiscriminately, and if aircraft carrier-based fighters and bombers had not attacked Japanese national railways, Japan could have completed Japanese atomic bomb ahead of America and could have atomic bombed San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, and Washington, D.C. This is a group photo of high school boys who were mining uranium ore in Fukushima, Japan. Imperial Japanese Army officer fired them up by saying this ore of matchbox amount could blow up the whole New York. Kiwamu Aruga, then 15-year-old high school boy there in Fukushima, had been digging uranium ore without knowing the purpose. But by this pep talk, he says he was motivated a lot and worked harder than before. Japanese uranium enrichment facilities were destroyed in April 1945, and American atomic bombs were completed in July, only 3 months difference. The fact was that Japan was beaten by a hair in the atomic bomb development race and has no right to blame America for atomic bombing on the two cities. Senkaku Islands issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 9. Hiroshima Peace Tourism. Hiroshima City sponsors Hiroshima Peace Tourism. They point at Hiroshima Castle and explain that Imperial Japanese Army Communication Regiment, who survived the atomic bomb blast in the castle moat, reported the devastation by the atomic bomb to Tokyo first. But this Hiroshima Peace Tourism does not explain the 5th Division, the master of Hiroshima Castle, committed war crimes such as 1. Babar Island massacre of 400 villagers. 2. Poisoned Australian POWs by potassium cyanide gas. 3. Attempted to transport healthy 1,500 soldiers and their weapons from Kai Islands near Australia to Singapore by Red Cross hospital ship and got arrested for violation of the international law. Hiroshima Peace Tourism guide Honkawa Elementary School and explained that 400 innocent kids were killed instantly by American atomic bomb. Also, Hiroshima Peace Tourism show Fukuromachi Elementary School and announces that 16 teachers and 160 innocent students were killed by the American atomic bomb. But their parents were partially responsible for their deaths. As B-29 reconnaissance planes had been observed frequently, Japanese government thought B-29 air raid on Hiroshima was inevitable soon and suggested parents to send their kids to safer remote countryside. Many parents obeyed the government recommendation and sent their kids to remote countryside. However, some parents refused to send their kids to countryside, which was not defended by anti-aircraft guns at all, and rather opted to have kids stay in Hiroshima, which was defended by perfect array of anti-aircraft gun positions. 3-kilometer radius airspace was heavily covered by 6 anti-aircraft gun batteries. Kaitaichi 6 pieces of 75mm anti-aircraft guns covered the 3-kilometer radius airspace. Shinonome 4 pieces of 75mm anti-aircraft guns covered the airspace perfectly. Uchikoshi 4 pieces of 75mm AA guns covered the airspace perfectly. Kannon 6 pieces of 75mm AA guns covered the airspace from the southwest. Moto Ujina 6 pieces of 75mm AA guns covered the airspace from the south. EBA, 6 pieces of 88mm AA guns covered the airspace from the south. EBA had larger 88mm anti-aircraft guns to defend Mitsubishi shipyard. This way, Hiroshima city was covered by anti-aircraft guns 32-fold. No wonder parents opted to have kids stay in Hiroshima for safety. Not only by anti-aircraft guns, but also Hiroshima was defended by air fleet. In the morning of August 6, 1945, when Enola Gay, the B-29 which dropped the atomic bomb, neared Hiroshima, she was counterattacked by a Japanese fighter. In order to load heavy 4-ton atomic bomb, Enola Gay had their machine guns removed except for the rear one and was very vulnerable to the enemy air attack. When Enola Gay passed Shikoku Island, she was detected by Japanese radar, and a Japanese fighter fired at her, which missed Enola Gay. The Japanese fighter passed Enola Gay and turned back to chase her from behind, but Enola Gay increased speed and altitude and outdistanced the Japanese fighter. It was a close call, and Enola Gay escaped the danger by a hair. It was a kill or be killed mission, and not a one-sided slaughter. Hiroshima Peace Tourism guide whatever convenient to Japan, but never ever refer to anti-aircraft gun batteries, searchlight nest, the fact that Enola Gay was counter-attacked by a Japanese fighter and survived by a hair. This is a table of identified casualties within 3-kilometer radius discussed in Chapter 2 and 3. Hiroshima Peace Tourism wisely picked Honkawa Elementary School and Fukuromachi Elementary School, which has no military presence. However, Noborimachi Elementary School had approx 800 militias killed on the school ground, and Tenma Elementary School had approx 400 middle school students killed at Koamicho demolition site who had been using Tenma Elementary School classrooms. Hiroshima Peace Tourism wisely avoided these elementary schools for tour course, as cenotaphs erected there reveal majority of killed were far from being innocent. For example, Noborimachi cenotaph rear side reads Tube number 32,037 unit, East Hiroshima. Tube number 32,057 unit, Sera County. Affiliated Women's Army Corps, Noborimachi Elementary School staff and students. These atomic bomb casualties are listed in descending order. Unit 32,037 had approx 300. Unit 32,057 had also approx 300. Women's Corps had approx 200, and elementary school had approx 30. Actually, Hiroshima City refers to these as soldiers in its listing of cenotaphs abundant in the city. Hiroshima Peace Tourism make tourists believe that 140,000 killed were all innocent by showing Honkawa Elementary School and Fukuromachi Elementary School. But even total innocent 1,411 are only 7% of all identified casualties in this table. The rest 93% are 10,000 plus soldiers, 7,000 plus mobilized students to military factories, and 3,000 plus mobilized students to demolition sites. They were making firebreak zone to defend military factories. In July 1945, Allied recommended Japan to surrender again by Potsdam Declaration, but Japan refused it and insisted that Japan would continue the war till the last man. These 21,000 plus people were all making efforts to continue the war in one way or another. This atomic bomb dome was the same. Hiroshima Prefecture used this building to display and sell Hiroshima products till March 1944. Then, approx 100 workers of Prefectural Civil Engineering Department moved in and were working on fire break zone layout, etc. in cooperation with the Army. Lumber Control Company also moved in this building. Toward the end of war, Japan suffered a serious shortage of steel and was replacing steel with wood wherever strength was not required. This state-backed lumber control company had a workforce of 260 and was controlling lumber trade to supply the army with suitable lumber for the replacement of steels so that scarce steels could be used for weapons. These people in the atomic bomb dome were working for the army in line with Japanese government decision to continue the war till the last man. On top of that, they were militias. They were scheduled to take up rifles and machine guns to kill Americans and their allies in the Battle of Japanese mainland, which was anticipated in November 1945, only 3 months ahead. The atomic bomb blasted only 600 meters above and killed all 150 plus workers inside the building instantly. Kill them before they kill you. That is the name of the game in a war, no matter whether the atomic bomb dome is UNESCO World Heritage or not. Senkaku Islands Issue and Hiroshima. Chapter 10. Conclusion. Back to our original theme of Senkaku Islands issue, the focal point is whether Japan is a trustworthy country or not. Right after Hiroshima atomic bombing, Japan issued a statement of protest against America, saying Hiroshima is just a common local city without any military defense nor military installations. That is, Hiroshima is not a military target as a whole. However, as we have witnessed in the chapter 4 overall picture, atomic bomb killed 4 birds with one blast. 1. The 2nd General Army. 2. Criminal 5th Division. 3. Most of small and medium-sized factories. 4. Disabled 2 Mitsubishi factories and 3 Army depots. On top of that, Hiroshima city airspace was defended by anti-aircraft gun batteries, 32-fold. Also, Hiroshima was defended by 9 searchlight positions. Yes, Hiroshima was a formidable fortress in the western Japan. That's why the 2nd General Army was placed in Hiroshima. We could understand above Japanese protest as a propaganda during the war, but Japan, even in this 21st century, still insists that Hiroshima was not a military city and 140,000 atomic bomb casualties were all innocents after destroying all evidences such as anti-aircraft guns, searchlights, etc., which would make better World War II heritage rather than the atomic bomb dome. As for Senkaku Islands issue, Japan insists that Japan incorporated the islands into Japan in 1895, as Japan could not find any evidence of Chinese sovereignty on Senkaku in their field survey. Can you believe this? We interpret their saying as Japan destroyed all evidences whenever they found during their field survey, which Japan carried out without the presence of the third party, just like Japan destroyed anti-aircraft guns, searchlights, etc. of Hiroshima and is pretending not to know.